know, I believe that anyone can make a positive difference in the world, great and small. I see it every day. And you don't have to be a celebrity or billionaire to do it. All you really need is the desire to use your unique gifts, talents, and passions, and then to simply begin. Hi, I'm Linda Mackey, and welcome to The Eloquent Entrepreneur, a place where I have conversations with everyday changemakers just like you. Join us and hear inspiring stories, hard-won wisdom, and discover practical tools to help you accelerate your impact. So whatever you're doing right now, listen in and prepare to be inspired. Hi, AmeLia. So great to see you. Thank you so much for being on my show. It's been a long time coming. I'm so excited to talk to you today. You are an amazing business owner, an entrepreneur, and change maker. And I am so excited for you to share your story and help people who are watching this to be inspired and just kind of, as you know, the show is the Eloquent Entrepreneur Conversations with Conversations with Everyday Changemakers. And your story is so inspiring, and I just had such a great time working with you and just learning more about your story. And so I am Linda Mackey. I'm a photographer, and my show is the Eloquent Entrepreneur, Everyday Conversations with Changemakers, and I have Ame-Lia Tamburrini here. Her company is called Hum Consulting. So why don't I just pass it over to you so you can tell us a little bit about yourself and your business and what you do.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Linda. It's so great to be with you again, and I'm honored to be part of your show. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm Ame-Lia. I live here in Victoria on Lekwungen territories. And a number of years ago in 2019, I started Hum Consulting. And Hum is really all about creating safe spaces for conversations that help people to connect with one another. And so that's sort of the business in a nutshell. I work with Indigenous community and local government, provincial government, and any organizations that are deeply committed to healing divides or really creating the world that we all want to live in, which is one really grounded in safety and togetherness and belonging, and support them to have conversations that are sometimes uncomfortable, but can be really life-changing and transformative.
Yeah, and this is the kind of dialogue that I think that is really needed, like somebody like yourself to facilitate, because people, we weren't taught this stuff, in school per se, or just in general. So, and I know you talked about your way of doing this is through circle dialogue. Can you talk about what that is?
Sure. Yeah, circle dialogue has been in my world for quite some time, but right as I was starting my company, I did an in-depth training, 5 days with Piece of the Circle. They're an amazing organization. And really it's a tool for gathering, and it really stems from our ancient ancestors, where we started to gather around controlled fire at some point. And what that did was create safety because people were now gathered together. It really developed language because people were then communicating and sharing stories with one another. And it also allowed people to cook food and gather and connect in those deep communal ways. And so that's really the core of what it is. And I think that's so beautiful because it's in all of us, sort of like ingrained deeply within our natural way of being, and we've kind of forgotten about it. But it comes forward when we ourselves are sitting around a fire. There's storytelling and connection and deep thought that happens. And so that's really what we are recreating with people, to help people see themselves in other people's stories to help people to celebrate their diversity, but also really find those threads where they are interconnected.
Mm-hmm. That makes so much sense. And that kind of ties in with the dinner table too. I mean, that's what we kind of want to do within our own families and when we get together with other people. So it's an extension of that so that we can have, in your case, you know, help people come together to find a common ground for various projects and that kind of thing. You also say you work with or you run transformational leadership circles. So is that part and parcel of the circle dialogue, or is that or an expanded kind of tool that you use?
Yeah, so it is. I use circle dialogue. I am deeply committed to this way of being, and the way in which we do it transforms depending on who is sitting in circle and what the needs are. But the leadership circle is really a process to work people through sort of the stages of harmony, where we are developing trust and we're identifying what are our common values and how do we agree to show up with one another, and then moving them into unity, which is really finding those threads of where are we connected, how can we work together, and then also uncovering our differences and celebrating those versus trying to come to some sort of consensus and molding everybody into this one way of being. In Circle, we're really just celebrating who we are at our core and working with that to then shift into momentum. So what is the change that you want to see in your community, in your organization? It might be bringing reconciliation to life in a more real way. It might be inclusion and diversity, or just creating a deeper sense of belonging, which with COVID, you know, it's really become so transparent that a sense of belonging, that sense of connectedness is just so, so important to our health and well-being. And so anyways, this is a program for leaders to come through, and they learn the skills of how to do circle dialogue, how to have these deep connecting conversations so that they can take those out into the places that they work within.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that sense of belonging is definitely heightened right now. Do you find, you know, I mean, because there's so many different types of people. I mean, there's sort of the empathic types, and then you've got more, you know, is that kind of, I mean, that's obviously something you have to work with. How do you find that in your work, like dealing with all the different personalities? Do you find that people are really receptive, even though, you know, maybe they're at one end of the spectrum in terms of, you know, because it's kind of, well, I mean, it's to me, it makes perfect sense, you know, because I'm a very empathic person, but maybe to somebody else, it's kind of foreign. So how do you bridge the gap with all the different types of personalities that you have to, you know, bring into the circle?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, Circle, it sort of handles those differences quite beautifully, because Circle at its core is really about storytelling. And I think anybody is capable of that. We all have stories. We're all also leaders in our own unique way. And to create a space where one person is sharing at a time, so that's a really core component of Circle. There's that space for people to just really hear what is inside of them and be able to bring that to the surface, which is a beautiful thing. And I think the different personalities, it works really well. I've heard from introverts, and I would classify myself in that category, that wow, it's such a luxury not to have to fight their way into a conversation, or just knowing that no one's going to be on that other end sort of cutting them off or doing that. And it's an opportunity for them to share their voice, which often I think sometimes is hard for those of us that identify as introverts.
I hear that just amongst friends who are introverts, and they say they don't feel they have a voice. So I think this is something that can, and we can talk about this more, because this you mainly work with organizations and groups and projects and stuff like that. But this could probably help the everyday person who maybe socially feels unheard, or they can incorporate this tool. It sounds like, is that right, or is this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It sounds like it can be translatable for different purposes, I guess. Personal,
so.
and yeah, no, that
I think so.
It makes a lot of sense to me.
Totally. And then on the opposite end too, like extroverts have also expressed to me that it's quite refreshing to be able to just sit and relax in conversation and not feel that they have to give advice or fix or coach or jump in with, which is a natural tendency. And for them too, they've had their awareness expanded because they're doing less talking and doing more listening. And they've also really appreciated that opportunity to do that. And yeah, in terms of applying Circle, I mean, it's applied in so many different settings. People use it for celebration, for birthdays and celebrations of life. And there's also support circles, which are often utilized in schools with youth, but in adults as well. Mm-hmm. And restorative justice is another format that it can be applied, where we're really trying to help people to take responsibility for acts of crime or whatever we want to call it that were committed, but deepen connection as well between the parties. Anyways, there's so many different ways we can use Circle, but also it's not necessarily about the technique, but the principles of Circle you can just take and put into any conversation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd like to learn more about that, just because I want to help. Well, me personally, because sometimes I feel like, it's hard to jump in, and I know I have other friends who feel that way. And, we have people in our lives that are very extroverted, and it's a lesson for them to, realize that everybody has a voice, and they can learn how to listen better and create more of a space for people who maybe don't feel the confidence or have the sort of inclination or this specific way of communicating in a way that they're gonna feel like they have a voice, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So mm-hmm. You mentioned the restorative justice, so you volunteer for, it's an organization here in Victoria?
It is. It's called Restorative Justice Victoria. And they get sent cases from the police department or the Crown, where there is a feeling that there's a possibility that the traditional criminal justice system really isn't going to serve the person, and what would be better is really creating a space for that person to really get in touch with what is the harm that has been created, and in what ways can they take responsibility for that, and then repair the harms through a set of actions or agreements. And I really love the restorative justice process, because what it does is that it treats people in the criminal justice system, as well as the victims, actually, with so much humanity. There's a recognition that we all have stories, and in so many of the people that I have worked with in this system, their history of trauma is heartbreaking. And it just so happens that they've made some poor decisions that have led to harm, and that now they found themselves in the criminal justice system. But this is a way to really help everybody heal in the process. And I really appreciate that, because it's just such a human exposure.
Yeah, I agree. I think there needs to be more compassion, because we all come from varying backgrounds and experiences, and like the bully syndrome, bullied kid becomes a, you know, like it makes complete sense. So that's amazing that you are a part of that. So how do you feel as a change maker yourself? How do you feel that you're really making an impact in the community and in the world, for that matter?
That's a good question.
I know you are.
Well, I think at the core, I'm helping communities to heal. And I do that by creating safe spaces for these conversations that create safety, that create a sense of belonging and bring people together. And I think that when I look at the world, I just see that there is so much unhealed trauma. And that unhealed trauma is at the root of all the divisiveness, because when we've experienced traumatic things, there's often walls that go up and this real need to protect ourselves. And that when we feel that we're always needing to protect ourselves, we start to behave in ways that really aren't aligned with our core values and our true ways of being. And that's where all the divisiveness, the position taking, the side taking comes from. But if we can get underneath that and create these beautiful spaces for people to tap more into their heart and speak from that place and see each other from that place, then we heal divides. And I think that's really what the world is asking for right now. And I think that's what I'm contributing to.
Definitely. And so, I mean, the work you're doing is very inspiring. And I'm just curious, like, you know, what inspired you to originally do this work? Like, what's the story behind it? Like, what brought you to this work that you're doing?
Yeah. Well, that story, I think like any entrepreneur, it's twisty and windy. I think, you know, originally before I started Hum, I worked with a small consulting firm that did health impact assessment. So what that meant is that I got to travel all throughout North America and overseas as well, and host dialogues with a lot of communities in rural and remote areas, a lot of whom were indigenous community to the land, and really help bring their voice, their perspective of health and well-being, their concerns into these big decisions like huge mining projects and oil and gas developments, and really help the decision makers understand, you know, what were the concerns of the community and how could they improve upon their projects to make them more healthy, less negatively impactful. And what I loved about that work was listening to people's stories and really bringing decision makers and community together to help them understand each other and connect. And I also found that often in those circumstances, the ways in which we engaged created more divisiveness between people, because people's positions would come to the surface, and all of a sudden, especially in these small rural communities, you know, where everybody knows everybody, they'd be like, oh wait, my neighbor Jim, he's against this and I'm for it, and then that's it, right? And then they leave and they have to go about their lives, and divisiveness would settle in. And so when I started Hum, I was like, I feel like anytime we bring people together, we should be creating these experiences, opportunities for people to really understand what is underneath those positions and get to the core needs, which generally we all sort of share a common set of core needs. And so that was the original intent. So I started Hum in January of 2019. And then in February of 2019, I was diagnosed with stage 3 Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a type of cancer of the lymph system. And of course, that's, you know, those moments in life are wake-up calls. And for me, I feel like I knew pretty quickly that this was an opportunity for me to fully step into something deeper and really tap into my purpose. And what evolved for me was love and joy of all things. I read this clip from one of Louise Hay's books.
Yeah, I love her.
Yeah, I do know her.
Yeah.
So she's great because she takes all health elements and then translates it into like a spiritual crisis that's happening. And for me, for the lymph system, it was this person has forgot the purpose of life, which is love and joy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I needed to hear that. And so that really changed my own personal mission in life. Like, how can I create more love and joy for me, but also for everybody around me? And so Circle Dialogue came into my life at that point, and I just thought, I think this is it. So I'm not just bringing people together to connect, but I also want to create opportunities for people to heal and really do that work, that transformative work, to create sustainable changes in their lives, not only for the project or the policy that we're talking about, but that they can carry forward in all of their relationships and connections. And so that's really what I do. It's about transformation at the core. Yeah. And that cancer experience really helped, I think, root my work in that bigger purpose.
That's often the case with, when we as entrepreneurs, it takes something like that, or, a challenging experience to really wake us up to our true calling and what we're meant to be here. And it's actually healing for us as well. I'm sure that you derive a lot of joy from your work because in your heart that it's serving others and doing what you had set out to do in the first place. So it's I don't know, I love how it does come full circle with these types of things, when we can really tap into that. But unfortunately it takes an experience like that, but those things are happening for a reason, right? And that's when you can really experience the joy, when you can really understand and accept that and know that it was part of the process from the beginning. So that's very cool.
I'm curious about your story as well, in terms of how you got into what it is you do today, which I think is just such beautiful work. But what did you have a story or an experience that got you to where you are?
Oh, yeah. I think it's been a journey, that's for sure. It's a bit of a long story, but I'll try to. Like I said, I have come to realize that I am a very compassionate, empathic person, and through experience and the teachings of my parents and just everyone around me, I was a child who was very rambunctious and loud and opinionated, but just over time I was just hushed. I was like, don't speak until you're spoken to. Or I was kind of like, what's the word? There was a lot of criticism, and there was a lot of subtle criticism. It's not like you're terrible or you're this or that, but like it was always like, I'd be so excited about doing something, and then my dad or somebody else in my life would say, "Oh, are you sure you can do that?" Like, so it always made me second guess myself. And so I slowly but surely quieted. I'd shut my mouth. I would hide. I would not speak. I'd be, and my confidence, went out the window. So I went from this super, like I'm the boss kid, super confident, to a mouse. I was called Mouse in high school because I was so quiet. And so when I discovered photography, I really, I'll start to cry in a minute. But when I started taking pictures of people, I was so in awe of people expressing themselves. And I was like, I wish I could do that. And so that's my love of portraiture, was really a connection to the person's soul who I was taking a photo of. And oh my gosh, this isn't about me, it's about you. But yeah, so that's what I really love about my work is really seeing a person truly blossom in front of the camera and see inside their soul, their essence, and see them express, because to me, that's ultimately what we're here for. We're here to express our full expression of ourselves. And that's part of the reason I'm doing this show, because this is part of my journey, you know, for people to hear me and see me and listen to me and share other people's stories like yourself who are making a difference. And you know, my whole thing about the change maker, I mean, that was kind of, you know, I feel like I've made an impact for animals, and that was kind of how this all started, and that's a whole other story. But you know, my whole mandate for this is that, you know, we can make impacts this big or this big. It doesn't matter. It's all part and parcel of the collective wave of change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so yeah, that's
beautiful. Oh,
so
thank you.
I'll keep doing
for
it.
sharing that. Yeah, please,
Yeah,
please.
I'll keep doing it as long as I can hold a camera and and walk. You know,
Absolutely. I actually share like a similar history of, you know, family of origin and the messages that I received as a small girl, and it's a little bit different. Well, one, there's just a lot of tension and fighting in my house. My parents divorced when I was 5, and then went through this epic 5-year custody battle after that. So it was a lot of tension in the household, and so there wasn't really positive messaging around using your voice and what that resulted in. But also my dad had just really, he was an Italian immigrant, and in his views were that girls were meant to be seen and not heard. And so I also quieted myself over and over and over again. And a lot of my life journey has been about rediscovering my voice and who I am, and expressing it. So that's another reason why I love what I do, because it creates a space for everybody to have a voice, to express themselves, and to do so in a safe way, which I love those stories of origin and how they filter into what we do as our work. It's such an awesome example of our pain becoming our passion. And when we do that, I think, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, but I think that's when we really make the difference in the world, when we're tapped into that source energy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, I just had a brilliant idea to work with you and with some of my clients, because a lot of people are afraid to get their photos taken because it is an expression of themselves. So if, you know, we could maybe facilitate a circle with maybe some of my clients that I've got coming up, or, you know, at some point, who would like to be part of it, that will help them with their confidence. And even though they don't have to speak when they have their photos taken, but they still need to express, they need to emit, they need to, you know, it's not just standing in there, as you know, because I've done your photos, it's not just standing there and I take the picture. There is an energy exchange. So I think that could be a really cool extension of both our services, you know, to help people when they need to have their photos done for their, especially for their businesses and their brands and their, you know, people out there in the world like yourself who are change makers. You know, they still need to be seen visually as well, right? And in video and in person and everything. So I think it could be a really cool opportunity there.
Very cool.
Yeah. So in terms of, I mean, you have so many gifts and all these things that have happened to both of us in our lives, obviously what we're just talking about. I mean, we've been able to tap into the silver linings and take those things that we've experienced and flip them on their side, and not only help ourselves, but help our clients because of these things that have happened. So what do you feel is your greatest gift, and how it pertains to your work?
Well, I think in all those years of being quiet, I really honed my listening skills.
Mhm.
And, you know, I think as a kid, it was maybe more of a survival mechanism, right? To listen and hear what was happening and how to change how I showed up so that, you know, the waters would remain calm. Um, and but what that translates into today is I do think I have a strong ability to hear what somebody is saying, but then listen to what is not being said underneath the surface that might need to be brought up so that people can really move forward and um, do a bit of healing work so that they can get themselves to another place. And I think that having the courage to lift those things up into the surface, into the light, so that people can see them is really my gift that I offer, and that really plays a role in what I do.
Definitely, yeah. And I think we share that in common because I think we had the similar experience, because I feel like that's one of my gifts as well. And I'm able to see below the surface of someone and bring that out. So it is a listening is a skill, and I know that for some people it's hard to really listen, but it's not hearing, it's listening. It's a totally different thing than hearing somebody. Listening is it's a way deeper thing. So yeah, I can definitely see that in you. So let's get on to your I guess your inspiration. We talked about your parents a little bit, and I know they had a lot to do with your inspiration in getting into this work. So tell us a little bit about that and your background and
for sure.
stuff like that.
Absolutely. So yeah, my parents really, when I think about it, have given me the experiences and skills to do what I do today, and they are inspiring. So my dad, he was a really amazing, world-renowned hairdresser. He won competitions all around the world, and you know, we had an interesting relationship growing up, but what I really came to appreciate about my dad is that he had the courage to call things out, like exactly what I was just saying. And so I often think of him when I'm lacking courage, but the people that sat in his chair after he passed away, I just heard story after story after story of all these people that said, wow, your dad changed my life. Because
Awesome.
I was sitting there and I was telling the story over and over again, and he just was like, he brought out the nugget that they needed to hear that nobody else was courageous enough to tell them. And that went on and really made a big impact for them. And so I really appreciated that about my dad. I didn't necessarily appreciate it when he was doing it to me as his daughter.
Sometimes we don't want to hear the truth about stuff.
Exactly. But I know he changed people's lives by doing that. And so that inspired me. And then my mom, she was a nurse. She was the eldest of 6 siblings. And she really had ingrained that caretaker characteristic and just this concept of health and well-being. And I think that inspired my own passion of health and wellness. I have a kinesiology degree. My master's is in epidemiology, which is the study of disease patterns in populations, really popular right now in the world of the pandemic.
That's
and
great.
I think, yes, totally. I think underneath everything I do is this desire for health and wellness. And I do think that when we find community, when we feel like we have belonging, that our wellness improves. And that's what I want to see for myself and everybody that I work with.
That's amazing. Yeah, we need more people like you. That's all I can say. So, you know, I want to help inspire people who are watching. So what kind of advice would you give to others who want to make a difference, who want to make a change, who want to leave their mark in the world? What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, I think the thing that has guided me is to really tap back into my intuition. And I think my intuition is something that I ignored for a lot of my life. You know, you hear the messages and
Me too.
Yes. Really, where does that come from? I don't know. And so, but that has really been my guiding light. It totally supported me through my cancer journey. And today it really helps me understand who I want to work with, what projects I want to take on. And when I know I'm not listening to my intuition and I make the decision, it always comes back. I always, find out later on that, oh yeah, I had an inclination about that before and I didn't act on it. And I think that's okay. I think it's a journey. But for me, if you're thinking about getting into business or making a new change in your life or pivoting your company, really paying attention to those things that raise your energy, that lift you up, that get you excited, and head toward whatever that happens to be. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Oh, very much so. I mean, I like you, I didn't listen to my intuition, and it's gotten to me in trouble over the years because I didn't listen to my heart. And actually, that's one of the things that I've, I have my top 3 mantra, which I've kind of been mulling in my head for years, but certain instances or things that come up in your life, it just really helps solidify. And one of them is just being true to myself. And that is really listening to my intuition and putting myself first. Because oftentimes because I didn't have the confidence in myself, or I didn't listen to my voice, I would be like, that's wrong. I would make it not true, and I would make other person's wants, needs, or whatever first. And so I would end up getting the short end of the stick, or I'd let myself down, or it would end up being a negative experience, or you know what I mean? Like, it's when you don't trust your intuition, inevitably something goes awry, right? And then the other is just I really value truth. And I think you do too. Like, this is what the whole circle thing is to come to a truth that people can be happy with, right? Yeah. To be in harmony with. And for me, truth is really, really truth and beauty. I mean, that's kind of, huge for me. So being fully transparent and honest and upfront about things is paramount. So yeah, I can totally relate to what you're saying. And I think that, that would be my advice to people is just be honest, just be truthful, but to be true to yourself at the same time, and that'll get you farther in life than, I don't know, not telling the truth or telling fibs or just, or just not listening to what your heart is telling you.
Yeah, I know there's that saying, the truth will set you free, and it really will. And it's not always easy. It's uncomfortable sometimes to speak your truth because we don't know how other people react. We have no control over that. And I think that's part of the puzzle is, for me anyways, it's been recognizing that I have no control over anybody else's reactions to what I am about to say or how I think or feel. And just being able to let that go and knowing that it's actually more important to honor what is true for me.
Well, exactly. And if you don't speak your truth, if you don't listen to your intuition, you're going to attract all the wrong people and all the wrong experiences and the wrong projects and the wrong jobs because you're not being truthful to yourself or to others. So, you're putting out the wrong message. So people think you're somebody you're not if you're not. You know what I mean? Like, you don't put yourself out there like, this is me. And I did that for many years. I would my whole life probably, to please other people. I tried to be somebody I'm not for other people. so that they would like me or work with me or whatever the case may be, right? And it doesn't serve in the end. Something always happens to go awry. So yeah, and that's, I think, all part of the intuition thing. It's really learning to trust your intuition and who you really are, you know, and be truthful about that. So
Totally.
yeah, no,
and I think well, I was just going to say that there's a trust piece there too. And I think that's something we have to constantly, just experiment with and work with. But I think as entrepreneurs, there's also anxiety around, well, if I am truthful, then I will repel people, or there won't be enough people out there to to serve. But in actual fact, what happens is you just start attracting in the exact right people, your ideal clients, the people that really want to work with you and honor you for who you are. And that is a magical thing. But I think we have to experiment with it, like work with enough people that we really don't want to be supporting or working with, that where there's not that alignment to get to the point where it's like, you know what?
Yeah. That is really the magic formula, because I mean, I've realized that once that I started really practicing this, is that, you know, I'm attracting the kinds of people that I want to photograph and work with, and the people that I don't, you know, it sort of becomes apparent who those people are, and that it's really freeing, because then you don't have the anxiety about, oh, I have to let this person down or that person down, because they're not appearing. The only people appearing are the ones that are right for you. So it really is. It is magical, but it's also kind of logical at the same time.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So let's talk about 5 years from now. What's next for you? What are your dreams and aspirations? I know you've got a few things. I'm sure lots of things on the horizon that you're excited about in your business and life.
I am. I'm excited about everything right now. My 5-year vision, really, I think has a worldwide audience that is out there waiting. And for me, I would like to be working in communities around the world to really bring, to heal divisiveness, to help create spaces where they have the skills and abilities and opportunity to connect. And I'm not articulating it very clearly right now, but I think there's a message that I have, and I do really want to be spreading that on stages, through my writing, through the work that I do in the communities I work with, and through my new podcast, which is
that's exciting.
It is exciting. May 13th. It's called Circle of Change, and that is really all about bringing circle dialogue to the podcast format, so people can really experience these types of conversations and also help see themselves in the dialogues that we have, so that they walk away feeling, soulless, that they're not alone in whatever they're going through, but also be able to honor their differences and all of that. So I do think the podcast in 5 years, I have a vision for it to be quite wildly popular.
And I can see you, I mean, I'm not sure if you do this already, but just having maybe a workshop or a course that can teach people circle dialogue, so they can apply it in their own, like we talked about before, maybe in their personal lives. For people like introverts, or people who don't feel like they have a voice when they're in social situations or work situations. I think that could be, well, I'm putting it out there for you. Sure. But and I could see you in, like, working with world governments. I mean, I would love to see, well, that would be, we need people like you to do that, because they obviously don't really know what they're doing. All right. Well, thank you for sharing everything about your business and what you do and your advice for entrepreneurs. And I just want to switch gears a little bit now, because you are a portrait client of mine, and I love hearing from my clients about their experience and you know, how their photos are helping them in their business and life. So we did your photo shoot, and I would love to know, or for you to share, how you felt prior to your photo shoot, and maybe what kind of what was the kind of motivation for doing the photo shoot?
Yeah, well, before the photo shoot, I was, let's say, 6 months, I think, post chemotherapy. And so for those of your listeners who have gone through that experience, they'll know that, you know, your body changes in really amazing ways. And I was lucky, I didn't have major surgeries, but a lot of people also have to go through that experience where your relationship with your body and my relationship with my body really changed. And I wasn't really feeling extraordinarily confident or even beautiful. I had lost all my hair in the treatment experience, and it was on its way growing back. And that was another process, although I have to say I just loved being bald. I thought that was the most freeing thing ever. I know all people don't feel that way, but so anyways, I didn't have a lot of confidence. Didn't about my looks or even my business. I was still very much on shaky ground in terms of what was going to happen. Would I be able to launch it? Did I have the ability to do that? And so I think when I approached you, I had known about your work for quite a while, and I got to a point where I think my hair was in a good place. I was like, okay, I like this. And I knew that the type of work I wanted to do would require me to really look a different way and to have those beautiful polished pictures that expressed something about me that currently wasn't being communicated in my photos. And I think that's why I came to you.
And you knew you had to put yourself out there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how have your photos, do you think, benefited you now that you've had them, you've been using them for a while? How do you feel that they've both, you know, literally and maybe esoterically, or like just, you know, I think there's sometimes far-reaching, how do I say this? Like, obviously, you know, people are seeing your face and that's kind of a given, but what are some of the benefits that you can talk about that you've kind of experienced just with being able to use your photos? And
yeah, I'd love to. I love my photos, and I have to say I get lots of compliments on them from all over. So kudos to you, Linda.
Well, you're beautiful.
Well, that's the thing about you, is that you bring out everybody's beauty. And I do think I definitely saw that in the work that you did with my photos. So in terms of benefits, like simply on a professional level, I have 100% confidence when I'm putting together proposals or media kits or whatever it happens to be, that I will be projected as a professional, and that it gives the impression of a certain level of quality that will be delivered with whatever my products are. And so I feel like I'm in alignment there because of those photos. What it's done for me personally, I mean, I think what your photos and your whole process, what it did was, and what you're so skilled at, is capturing essence. And I really think that you, through your interviews before we did the photography session, you really get deep and you understand who is this person and who do they want to become? What is their vision of themselves? And then you actually just elevate that and bring it to life with your photos. And so I use these photos a lot to reflect on who it is I want to be, how it is I want to show up. And it reminds me to be a certain way, and that in a way it's sort of accelerated me stepping into that higher version of myself. And I think that's a real gift that you offer.
Yay, I did my job.
You did your job.
That's the whole point of these photos, is really to do exactly what you just said. You know, I want my clients to really see themselves at their true potential and step into that in real life and have their photos reflect that. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And I'm so happy that they're working for you, and, you know, they are you. I mean, that's kind of the other goal, is to have these photos, like I always say, speak for you when you can't be there in person. So, and they, you know, inspire you to be that person in real life. So that's awesome. And that's you in your element, basically, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So.
They are a beautiful communication tool. And I think they communicate in and of themselves to the client, like, who is this person? What is their essence? What is the level of professionalism or work that I can expect from this person? Like, there's just so much that goes into the photo, and it's beautiful the way that you capture it and deliver it. So
thank you. Yay. So yeah, I mean, I'm so grateful to have you as a client, and I'm so happy that you know, things are at a stage in your career, in your business, that it's how do I word this? Like, it's you're living it, what you envisioned. And that's really important to me, for my clients to, through, you know, the help of my work, help them get to that level, so that you can actually have, you know, a 5-year plan of actual tangible ways to take your business up and up and up to the level that you envisioned. And you can keep dreaming, right? And keep going in the direction of your passions, and just how you want to make a difference, basically. So it's so exciting for me to have clients like you that are living it and doing it, and stepping into, you know, because I see, well, I remember you saying that you didn't feel as much, like you fully embody the confidence, and you're glowing right now. So it just shows me that you're just really in your element and loving what you're doing. And I'm happy that the photos are enhancing that. So, and I hope to do more shoots with you in the future when you're ready.
Absolutely. I know videos are just so important right now, and they're becoming increasingly so. And I love that you've added that to your repertoire. And I definitely see that as a future project. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk. I've got some ideas for you.
Cool.
So let me see. What other questions do I have? I know you talked about what drew you to me, which is great. You love my work and everything like that. As far as photography, I mean, I know you're a visual person, and sometimes this is kind of a given, but sometimes people have different insights as to, you know, why is photography important? And because I believe it or not, I had one person I met through a networking, and he just said, I don't know why I need a photo. Right. So I was just like, what? So, so from your experience, what do you like? Why do you think photography is important, either personally or professionally? Like, can you give a little more insight, as you know, above and beyond the obvious?
Totally.
Or maybe it's not so obvious. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think there are different sorts of people out there. For me, I'm the type of person that wants all the bits and pieces in place. Like, I will plan and perfect before I take action. And as an entrepreneur, I'm really trying to get myself out of that, and just take the action anyways.
Oh, right. You mean the perfectionism type thing?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying the photos were part of that, but for me, I needed the photos to give me the confidence to then go after the work that I really wanted to do. And some people don't need that. Some people don't have websites, they don't have photos, they're just going out there and getting the work, and that's like an afterthought. But even the afterthought, I think people would say, is that once those photos are in place, wham, your business elevates and you are allowed, you can go to that higher level. So I think that's something to consider. I personally think photography, you know, it's art, and we know that art is taps into our emotions. And when we're able to tap into our emotions, that's a way to connect. And for me, I think that is what photography helps to do, absolutely, in my business, because it invokes an emotional response. And to me, that's really important, and really what we want to do with our clients when we're working with them and trying to build relationship, that we want to foster that connection at that level. And so I think they're really important. I think photography is really important.
Yeah,
it's also a different way to express yourself.
What's that?
Well, it's also a different way to express yourself. You know, yeah. The being an entrepreneur takes creativity, and just going through the experience with you, it was such a creative experience, totally out of my comfort zone. And that in and of itself, I don't know, there's a shift of energy that happens, and especially the way in which you do your photo shoots, it's fun, it's invigorating, it's inspiring. And so there's that element as well.
Yeah, and I definitely see that a lot, you know, like, I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of photography you do, it can be very transformational, and we all come out of it the other side slightly different person, and usually for the better, right? So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that's I totally agree with everything you said. And obviously visually nowadays, with, you know, all of us on screens, and you know, it's become more and more important to put yourself out there and be seen and heard, you know, because that's the way we communicate. It is a very effective communication tool. You know, photographs, even still photographs, not just video, can really communicate a message in more ways than one. So I think there's still, and it will be for, you know, forever, an amazing tool for everyone, whether you're in business or not, you know? So let me see. I think we've covered so many things. I guess, let me think here. I guess a good question would be, what would be the number one tip you'd give to fellow entrepreneurs who, maybe like this guy I was talking about, you know, who are thinking about getting their photos done but are a little bit hesitant? You know, what would you kind of say to them?
I would say just do it. And I had a really good friend and entrepreneurial partner also go through this debate in her head, like, do I get photos, do I not, whatever. And we ended up talking about it, and what came out of that conversation was, this is a day of celebrating. It's a day of having fun. It's a day of really, I think, celebrating everything that you've done up until this point to get to where you are in your business. And it's a way to really ground yourself in all that you have achieved up to that point. I think some of the resistance towards photography is that it might feel like self-indulgent, or, oh gosh, that's all about me. And yes, it is all about you. And it's a way to just celebrate yourself. Like, go have a day with Linda and be sorry.
And express yourself, and that's what I love about personal branding photography. And I know I've talked to you about this before, but I mean, these are beautiful portraits. They're not just for business. They're transformational, but they're also communication tools, but they're also for you to come out the other side more confident. You know, I've had clients say that I don't see myself as ugly anymore. I mean, that's huge. Yeah. You know, so I think there's so many reasons to have your photos, and they can be like I said, they're beautiful portraits. They could be framed on your wall. They could be given to your husband or partner as a gift. They can be passed down to your children. I mean, there's so many reasons to do it, not just for your business. And that's what's the beautiful thing about, being an entrepreneur now, is that, we do everything in our business, and we're responsible to communicate who we are and what we do. And, photography is just another tool to help you communicate that on an emotional level to your ideal clients and projects and endeavors, or, so it is pretty, that's why I get so excited about it, because it is powerful. And, but it also enhances you as a person, inside.
Yeah.
So. Wow. So I'm super excited about what you have coming up. You've got your podcast. You're doing your volunteer work. You're working with amazing clients and projects in Canada and worldwide. And you will be doing that more so once your podcast gets up and running. And May 13th is the launch date. So I'm going to include your website in the notes, and also your the podcast. So I guess you'll be available on all the channels, right? And
it's already up. You can find the trailer on any of your favorite podcast channels.
Oh, awesome. Okay, and it's called Circle of Change?
Circle of Change.
Yay. Awesome. Okay. And then we're also in this interview, we're going to highlight some of our photos that we did, so people can see our beautiful photos that we did. And yeah, well, thank you so much for talking with me. It was awesome. And yeah, we'll look forward to listening to your podcast, and we'll do a workshop together for my clients.
Sounds amazing.
I think that's a good idea.
I love it.
All right. Well, I will. What's that?
Just would love an opportunity to co-create. I think we already co-created when we did the photos together, and this would be a neat other way to do that.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Eloquent Entrepreneur, Conversations with Everyday Changemakers, and that you're feeling supercharged and inspired to make your positive impact in the world. Because one thing I know for sure is that together we can create a lasting legacy and ignite others to do the same. To learn more about The Eloquent Entrepreneur and more, visit my website at lindamackey.ca. Bye for now.